Historical. That's the word being used by a lot of people about what we just saw on the Final Four weekend, but obviously with the 17 upsets in the tournament leading in the first 3 weeks. Scoreboard does not lie. I don't know if this is a one-time occurrence. The women outdrew the men in the TV rankings.
Awesome.
Figure that out. 18.9 million saw the championship game between South Carolina's Lady Gamecocks and Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes. 18.9 million. The men's game, which had a lot of storylines going into it, they drew 14.8 million. So women's basketball, for the first time, it was a novelty. I think everybody who liked basketball wanted to see it. I don't know if they're all hardcore women basketball fans, but they went and they viewed what we thought was spectacular. Just so many cool things. Dan Hurley stood up at the parade in Storrs, Connecticut, and said, "We are now officially a dynasty." UConn has won 6 NCAA titles, a bunch of them lately. Staley, the coach at South Carolina, very strong in her opinion about where women's basketball has come from. She also made a bold comment at their celebration. She's of the opinion that transgender athletes should be allowed to play women's collegiate sports. Wow. That's going to open up a can of worms, and that's something that we can probably debate a little bit farther down the road. Gino Auriemma at UConn, gracious in UConn's loss. He just praised Caitlin Clark for everything she did, how mentally tough she was, how she shouldered the load to amplify the greatness of women's college basketball, and says he's looking forward to her doing the same thing in the WNBA with all the other stars that are going in to the draft. And one of the great coaches of all time in women's basketball just announced her retirement, Tara Vanderveer, Stanford. Phenomenal career, 38 years with the Lady Cardinal, over 1,200 wins. She just announced her retirement. And then, of course, there's one sidebar story, the coaching carousel going out of control completely. John Calipari was told that we don't think you should remain as coach. There was a $33 million buyout, and Kentucky could not afford that. But they indicated to him, "You are free to look." He looked across the state line, went to Arkansas almost immediately. And how badly did they want him? He negotiated a different type of contract at Arkansas. He went back to Kentucky and said, "I'll stay here if you'll match the offer." And Kentucky said, "No, you've made your decision. You can leave." So now Kentucky's searching for a coach. Calipari was asked to vacate. So just an amazing week of basketball, capping off an amazing month, March Madness.
Yeah, I think the viewership is outstanding. I mean, the NFL, though, is still like 3 times the amount of viewers, isn't it? I mean, that's just the elephant in the room. Yeah.
But women's basketball, John, went from 4 million viewers to 18.9 viewers, the snap of the fingers.
That's so awesome. You know, it's like women's soccer. You know, it's you see a lot of young girls there with their moms and their aunts, and they've got a sport to rally around. So I think this has legs as far as, you know, it's not a one-time thing with ratings for the women's basketball. The men enjoy it. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal was on King Charles with, you know, Barkley and Gayle King, and saying, "I like the women's tournament more than the men's tournament. It was more entertaining." But going back to Coach Gino over there at UConn, did you see that video clip right after Gabby Marshall got, you know, picked by that moving screen that was so controversial at the end? And you could see Coach Gino just like, you know, upset. And then right behind him was Gabby Marshall with her arms in the air, celebrating to her fans in the stands. And it was a perfect juxtaposition of the emotion of that game. So this is a spectacular run for the women. I hope they keep going. And let's not stop at basketball. Let's get women's tennis and all the other sports. Let's get them going.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And because they've got great coaches and the exposure has been spectacular. This is, John, this is all the end result of decades and decades ago of the implication of Title IX. Title IX arrived. We saw it with what women's basketball has become. It was just fabulous going forward. Now, all those stars are going to the WNBA draft in a couple of weeks, and they'll move to the pro level, and maybe that'll have an impact in terms of attendance, lots of places in the WNBA.